Riviera Travel. You'll get to choose from 47 tours in over 30 worldwide destinations. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name is Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Good evening, it is 6 o'clock. I'm Nana Acquia and you're watching Dewbs & Co. Coming up in the hour, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has unveiled his shadow cabinet, setting out his top team as he says the party prepares for government. But what do you think about those appointments? Britain has reached some bleak milestones, not great ones. Unemployment has climbed to its highest level in nearly 5 years, and youth unemployment has risen above Europe's for the first time on record. Now, after the government's U-turn on cancelling local elections, it's ridiculous that they even thought that they should cancel them. Questions are now mounting for local government secretary Steve Reed. Is it time for him to go? And a mother from Gaza has successfully used the ECHR, yeah, you guessed it, to win the right to move to Britain. Could this ruling now open the floodgates for more Palestinian refugees? On my panel tonight, Reform UK's London mayoral candidate Layla Cunningham and also Labour councillor Stuart Fawcett. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. The top stories. Nigel Farage has unveiled his new top team, a group that he's calling a shadow cabinet. Richard Tice has been confirmed as deputy leader, with Mr Farage saying he would be deputy prime minister if Reform wins power, and he'll also take on the business, trade and energy brief. Former Tory minister Robert Jenrick becomes the party's economic spokesperson, blaming what he calls decades of mismanagement for Britain's economic problems. Reform also announced Mr Jenrick as the party's pick to become chancellor if it wins power at the next general election. Businessman Zia Youssef, who isn't an MP, takes the Home Affairs role, focusing heavily on immigration. And Suella Braverman will lead on education, skills and equality.
I'm very pleased now to be part of a very productive and mission-led team, which is focused ultimately on serving the British people.
Councils are facing what organisers are calling a race against time to prepare for local elections after the government reversed its decision to delay dozens of votes. Elections will now go ahead in around 30 council areas on the 7th of May after ministers abandoned plans to postpone them following legal advice. The body representing election administrators says staff have lost months of planning time and now face an uphill struggle to get everything ready. The government says £63 million will be made available to help councils manage the changes. But critics say the last-minute U-turn has created confusion and pressure on local authorities. Shadow Business Secretary Andrew Griffith says the situation shows a lack of planning at the heart of government.
Rather than focus on jobs, rather than focus on defence, rather than focus on fixing our healthcare system, have decided to inflict this ridiculous local government reorganisation on the country. It's properly mad. And on a day that we've got the highest unemployment for 5 years, young people finding it incredibly hard to get a job, they shouldn't just shelve their cancellation. They should shelve the whole of their local government reorganisation and get on with the real job.
More than 50 years after being forced from their homes, a group of Chagos Islanders say they've begun a permanent return. 4 people landed on the remote archipelago, defying a British exclusion zone, and say hundreds more could follow. They're led by Misley Mandarin, who says many islanders want the chance to return before it's too late. The Chagosians were removed by British authorities in the late 1960s and 70s and resettled mainly in Mauritius. The group says they now plan to stay as the UK considers handing sovereignty of the islands to Mauritius. Former MP Adam Holloway helped the Chagosians raise funds for their new settlement.
We're trying to turn this place over to Mauritius without asking him, the democratically elected person. It's quite extraordinary. And what we're hoping to do by having this, a permanent settlement here, what we're hoping to do is we have successfully changed the facts on the ground. Now I hope the law and good sense will catch up with it.
Elsewhere, burning a religious text is in itself disorderly and should have led to a man's conviction being upheld after he set a Quran alight, the High Court has heard. Hamid Koskin was convicted last June of a religiously aggravated public order offence after he held a flaming copy of the Islamic text aloft outside the Turkish embassy on the 13th of February last year. The 51-year-old successfully appealed against his conviction and it was overturned by Mr Justice Benethan at Southwark Crown Court in October. The Crown Prosecution Service has launched an appeal against that decision. Its barristers told a hearing today that the judge was wrong to find that Koskin's behaviour was not disorderly. The UK's unemployment rate has climbed to a near 5-year high, rising to 5.2% in the final 3 months of 2025. The ONS says the increase reflects weak hiring and more people actively looking for work, with the rate edging up from 5.1% the previous quarter, higher than economists had expected. Wage growth also slowed, with regular pay rising 4.2% annually, while redundancies are trending upwards. Officials say the number of job seekers per vacancy has now reached a new post-pandemic high. Elsewhere, a cold health alert has been issued across much of England as forecasters predict snow could hit parts of Wales and the Midlands. The alert from the UK Health Security Agency runs from 6 a.m. on Friday until 8 a.m. on Monday and covers the southwest, the Midlands, the northeast, the northwest and Yorkshire and the Humber. The agency said the cold weather was likely to pose a greater risk to life of vulnerable people and prompt an increased use of healthcare services. Finally, tributes are pouring in for the late civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, who's passed away at the age of 84. Donald Trump describing him as a force of nature and a man with lots of personality, grit and street smarts. Former Vice President Kamala Harris describing him as one of America's greatest patriots. His family say he passed away peacefully this morning, surrounded by loved ones. Jackson was a towering figure in the fight for racial equality, working alongside Martin Luther King Jr. during the civil rights movement of the 1960s. His family says his lifelong commitment to justice helped shape a global movement for freedom and dignity. Those are the latest headlines. More from me in an hour. It's back to Nana.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good evening and welcome to Dewbs & Co with me, Nana Aquia. Now, joining me until 7 o'clock, my panel, Reform UK's London mayoral candidate Layla Cunningham, and also Labour councillor Stuart Fawcett. And as ever, don't forget you can get in touch on the usual ways at gbnews.com/your say. We love to hear your views. Now, today was quite a big day for Reform UK and the leader Nigel Farage, because he unveiled what he's calling a shadow cabinet. He set out his top team as he says the party prepares for government.
The country, we are the voice of opposition to this government. And so it's time for the party to take the next step. Too often, the criticism over the last 20 months has been that we're a one-man band, to which I generally respond by saying, well, it's better than being a no-man band. But the time has come to broaden the party, to put in place people in shadow positions, and that process begins today.
So among the key appointments, Richard Tice, he's being confirmed as the deputy leader, and he will also take on the business, trade and energy brief. Then there's former Conservative Minister Robert Jenrick, who becomes Reform UK's economic spokesperson. Zia Youssef will take on the role as Home Affairs with a strong focus on immigration, and Suella Braverman will lead on education, skills and equality. Now, Nigel Farage says that this is about showing Reform is ready for power as the party continues to perform strongly in the polls. But let's see what my panel make of that. I'm going to start with you, Layla Cunningham.
Yeah, I mean, it's the dream team. You know, if you listen to the press today, one thing that really blew me away was you could hear conviction. There was no mincing of words. There was no, you know, what exactly do they mean? There was no innuendos. It was, this is what we are going to do. And everyone understood exactly what a Reform government will bring. And I think that is really refreshing for me.
All right, Stuart Fawcett, does this put the heebie-jeebies up you, seeing as your Labour?
I mean, I'm somewhat less enthused than Layla, but that might not surprise anybody. But look, Reform have 8 MPs. I think if the Conservatives are here, they might say they were the opposition to the opposition. But I'm sure they'd probably take some delight in that, quite frankly. But this is a long way to go for them to form a government from 8 MPs. And in order to do that, they'd have to make a government of 323 MPs, full stop. And that means getting them all elected on one day. And that's quite a big scaling problem if you look at that from here. I do see that Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman are looming large there on the top table. And they were last seen at the top table at the cabinet of the former Conservative Party. So it's quite an interesting pick that's going on there.
Well, they both sort of left because they didn't believe the Conservative Party were Conservative enough. And I think Suella Braverman made the point that this is the new right.
I don't know if they had as much courage in their conviction when they were Conservative candidates on the ballot paper at the 2024 election, though, when they were asking their constituents to vote for them as Conservative Party candidates. I think at that stage they probably did think that there was probably some mileage in it for them personally to remain MPs, and that now when they look at the popularity that Reform is gaining, that perhaps that influenced their decision to a different direction.
I think that's quite a cynical view. Listen, when you're part of a party, you know, and listen, I've been through a divorce. It's like a marriage. You invested so much, and all your friends are there, time, effort, decades in terms of Suella and Jenrick, and it's a very difficult decision to leave. And it takes time and it takes consideration. And the moment that you decide, obviously, you do leave. And I think people will say, you know, you've picked the people who caused all the issues. But I would say that they didn't fail because they were weak. They failed because the party they were a part of was weak, you know, and they had conviction and they tried. When I listen to them now, after they've left and they've got the freedom to speak, I realise that they were let down by the country, by the party they were in, and they weren't allowed to do what their brief asked them to do and what the electorate voted them to do. And listen, you feel, when you hear them actually, you feel that the Conservatives actually punish people for speaking out, punish people for saying this is the right way to do things. And Reform doesn't do that. You know, if you have conviction, then we back you, and conviction that matches that of the electorate.
Well, hold on. I mean, what about Rupert Lowe, though? What happened to Rupert Lowe and others? What you've just said there, that might not seem true, because some might say that Rupert Lowe is sort of punished. I'm not sure why, but, you know, Reform UK have also had their issues with certain people as well. It's not just the Conservatives.
Well, listen, I wasn't part of the party when Rupert Lowe was left, but now, you know, I get somehow my exit feed is filled with it. I mean, they're talking about if you're not white and Christian in this country, you're not British. Right? They're going back to some kind of like neo-Nazi Aryan race. If you're not white, I mean, I've heard their spokesperson on Talk TV and on TV saying, if you are not white and Christian, then you're not deemed to be British. And, you know, that flies in the face of wanting integration and assimilation, because no matter how much you integrate or assimilate, according to them, you will never be British.
Well, look, I mean, they're not here to defend themselves right now, but the bottom line is there might be people in their party who say one thing who don't, but that might not be the party line.
Well, he's the spokesperson on the TV the whole time.
But for example, in your party, you'd have disagreements. You might think one thing, Nigel Farage might say another. Nigel has even said, well, you know, we're a party and we've all got different viewpoints.
No, but these are fundamental principles.
They may be, but again, as I said, that might not represent the full view of that party, and obviously they're not here to defend themselves. But look, let's look at it. So there were many MPs there who didn't get any role at all. Danny Kruger, Andrew Rossendale, Lee Anderson, Sarah Pochin, they were also there. Do you think that do you think, because some people are saying that actually we wanted to see some more appointments, for example, Defence Secretary?
I mean, considering that a government's first duty to any nation is its defence and security, I find it extremely interesting that Reform didn't pick anybody who they wanted to entrust the responsibility of that to. I can only read into that to a certain extent. Do they not prioritise that? Is there someone else waiting in the wings? I don't know. What I find interesting is, with a few of the other characters in Reform at the moment, for example, Andrew Rossendale, when he was in the Conservative Party, was a shadow minister, and all that time of 14 years in government was never given a ministerial role, and then was a shadow minister again before he left. So is there a pattern continuing there where perhaps Andrew Rossendale isn't going to be given any kind of ministerial responsibility? But at the end of the day, what fundamentally remains is that, yes, whilst Reform are naming these particular individuals, some of who aren't elected, by the way, and perhaps may not get elected. So there's a question of, are they going to try and make peers of these people in order to fill ministerial roles?
Possibly, or they might give them what they believe is a safe Reform seat, which...
Well, we don't know where that is yet,
well,
do we?
Exactly, but they still do have to...
I mean, in terms of the defence appointment, you know, as Nigel said, we're just getting started, and all these roles are very, very important, so there's no point in rushing it. Defence is a fundamental...
He did say he was expecting a general election in the next year, and that's a party that doesn't have anybody to focus on defence when they are vying to be in government within the next 12 months.
Yeah, and we're just getting started.
That's quite serious.
It's the beginning, and the team is going to be built, and it's going to be a very formidable team. And really, there is going to be a fundamental difference between your party and between the Conservatives, is that we have a leader.
Do you mean your party? Your party's
Sorry, no, I mean Labour and Conservatives.
I certainly am not part of your... Just want to make that very clear. They don't know what their party is.
It's your party.
In terms of defence, is that we will finally have a leader that really believes in the ultimate sovereignty of this country and is not willing to chip away at the sovereignty in the name of global partnerships that don't benefit the country. And I think that is the difference between Conservative and Labour, is that, you know, we believe more in the sovereignty in the country than we believe in global partnerships.
Of all the televised performances I've seen of Nigel Farage, I've never heard it, and I promise you I believe this, where I've heard him say, I want to be the Prime Minister of this country. And that's where I think, for me, I see that lack of conviction. Does Nigel Farage believe in himself that he wants to be the Prime Minister of this country?
Of course he does.
Because that's quite a big ask of any organisation, personality, individual, and to go from 8 seats to 323, I'm trying to understand how Reform think they have a better argument for that than Labour, Conservatives, even the Lib Dems, with where they've come.
I'll tell you, the better argument is that we've been polling, we've been topping the polls the past 200 polls. So much so that sometimes we poll higher than Tories and Labour put together. Hang on. And Nigel doesn't have to come out and say, I want to be Prime Minister.
I think obvious. People want to hear it from him.
But no, I think you think they do, but I think everyone hears loud and clear. We are working on the premise that we are topping the polls and people want change. We are the only vehicle of change, and we will be the next government, and Nigel will be the Prime Minister. He's not going to stand...
I disagree. I think people want to know if an individual wants to lead, and perhaps there's some lessons here for people waiting in the wings in the Labour Party, admittedly, that is what they want to do, and they have the courage and conviction that they wish to undertake.
Of course he does.
But at the moment, what you are seeing, yes, you're doing quite well in the polls. You have to get those people, you have to take that and multiply it across 323 seats across the United Kingdom in order to make today and this top table a reality. So you have to convince people in 323 different constituencies and put them on a journey to a polling station all in one day, and that is different than just the regular polls that are coming out.
To be fair, an election doesn't come down to one day. An election comes to convincing people that you are that vehicle of change, and that change that you will bring is what they want. And they have to trust you to follow through on what you promise that you will. Right now, that trust is not there for the Conservatives and Labour. And listen... I
disagree with that. I think Labour...
Hold on. You disagree that people don't trust the Labour Party after how many... What U-turn are we on?
No.
Do you remember? What are we on? Is it...
I've lost count of the U-turns, but what I haven't lost count of is the amount of business that is going through Parliament at the minute that's making real change to people's lives.
Like what? Sorry, give us an example.
So, for example, lifting 500,000 children out of poverty.
You don't lift them out of poverty with handouts. You know that. But you know what lifts people out of poverty?
I don't want to be told what I know and what I don't know.
It's what jobs.
Absolutely. So that's why we brought through a new deal for working people.
What's the deal for working people?
Security. In order.
What is the deal for working people?
Speak.
In order to bring people much more security in their workplaces.
How are you doing that? Because we've just got record unemployment figures, and we've got pubs and lots of businesses closing, and we now know that employers are not really looking to employ people because of the Employment Rights Bill. So the unemployment right now, what is it? 5%, the highest it's been for quite some time.
I think it's just short of 5% at the moment. Yeah, I think that we've also got another thing looming large in the employment figures, which is the introduction of AI to workforces. And at the moment, that is moving so fast and currently consuming so many other roles that jobs would fill, that we just haven't moved to a situation where we're using AI for productivity in order to employ, more people gainfully and get greater productivity, which is the greatest problem we have in our economy at the minute, which is serious low productivity, which has stagnated for the past 20 years since the economic crash.
All right, well, I'll just give you the employment. Unemployment has risen to 5.2%, actually, so above 5%.
The problem is that when you have excessive regulation, which we do right now, when you have higher employer tax, right, and when you have compliance burdens, only big businesses can absorb that. So the small businesses die. So you have a monopoly at the top, and effectively it's the small businesses that hire youth because they're the ones. It's not the big ones, and they're completely shut out of the economy because through regulation they can't afford to absorb the cost of it.
Well, listen, we'll talk more about unemployment because that is on the way next. But I've got to say, Dawn says that Nigel Farage is still a one-man band. If anyone argues with Farage, they're out. He said so. And Robert says, don't like the Tory appointments, don't trust them. Roger says Farage is putting together a brilliant team. They are so intelligent and have the skills to do the hard jobs needed to turn this country around. Their speeches were so inspirational and they speak from the heart with such conviction. I have such hope after listening to them. All right, well, listen, coming up, Britain has reached some bleak milestones. Unemployment has climbed to its highest level in nearly 5 years, and youth unemployment has risen above Europe for the first time on record. That's on the way next.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewberry, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good evening, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Nana Acquair. Now, joining me until 7, my panel, Layla Cunningham and Stuart Fawcett. Right, well, let's talk about work and unemployment, because finding work is actually becoming increasingly difficult as redundancies rise and competition for jobs intensifies. New figures show that unemployment has hit a 5-year high, with businesses blaming risks, rising costs and new employment laws for scaling back hiring. And there's another worrying milestone. Britain's youth unemployment rate has now risen above the European average for the first time since records began, with 16% out of work. Well, let's see what my panel make of that. Stuart Fawcett, you talked about AI, but I suspect this is more to do with the changing job market, minimum wage increases, which it seems as though the Labour Party haven't thought about what the ricochet would be, and other implications like the Employment Rights Bill, which a lot of people are calling the Unemployment Rights Bill.
So I can speak from someone who's been both employed and an employer. I used to employ people in a business, and
I
pay them every
national insurance
hour.
as well. Yeah.
What you pay them every hour isn't the full cost of employing somebody.
No.
That's gone up as well. You've got pension contributions. The last government wanted more people to take onus of their own pension rather than being reliant on a state pension. So those costs have risen, and the most recent one of those was national insurance contributions, which you've outlined, which went from 13.8 to 15. So the burden on a business of employment for people has become more expensive. What has also happened with the economy is the economy is pretty much flatlined, and we haven't been able, whilst the costs of employing people have gone up, the productivity of people in the workplace has not grown, and that's been happening for about the last 40 years. That's been pretty stable. Yes, we have had AI coming in now, which is doing a lot of administrative jobs and those sorts of things, so there will be an impact, but we don't have a full grasp on its contribution so far. But look, there is a fundamental problem, which is our NEETs are not in employment, education and training. The worst hit are 18 to 24-year-olds and late 40s to early 50s. And it's a massive problem that this government is trying to grapple with. It's tried to do welfare reform. It has put in place a lot of measures where people can have the right to try, so they don't have a drop-off completely in the support that they get from welfare, so they can actually go and try work and not lose everything all at once, especially if that work is uncertain. Look, me personally, I think there is a huge case now for a new type of national service for young people and those in NEETs categories. I really do think we could upskill a generation, get them a lot more enfranchised in our society, get them going. There's some great examples of it from around the world. It doesn't have to be in the military. It could be like a civil defence sort of thing. That's something that I would be very keen on forwarding as a policy. And I think given the state of security in the world at the moment, it would be something that would be very beneficial, not just beneficial here in the UK, but to our military.
Layla Cunningham.
The thing is, right now, and I said this before, I alluded to it, small businesses are being crushed by extra, NIE contributions, taxes, burdens, regulation, and small businesses are the biggest employers of young people right now. And they can't absorb all the cost of all the regulation and extra taxes that Labour have brought in, and so they're leaving the market, and you do have a monopoly at the top. And the big companies don't hire young people, but not only that, it's the consumers suffer because there's no competition. Small businesses, they innovate and they want to give a better service to prove themselves. And that's what Labour doesn't seem to understand, is that, like Nana said, it's the unemployment regulation that you brought in, and you think you're protecting jobs, but actually you're excluding people from the job market.
So just on your point there, I mean, having run a small business, I employed about 12 people at one point, and that's a job within itself. When you talk about you referred to national insurance contributions earlier. That we've also reformed that so that instead of the ceiling being retroactively taken away over a certain amount for small businesses, they did get an extra amount of relief on there. So it did proportionately help small businesses better. But I don't disagree that small businesses face pressures that larger ones don't, especially with access to credit and invoice financing that they often face with their cash flow. But that's what the Labour government brought in as well, was that invoices are much more enforceable now so that cash flow can help small businesses. And that was in the wake of things like Carillion and other larger companies like that were exploiting smaller businesses. So it's not always exploitation of people, but also other business practices that the government's been trying to address in this term. And I think that's another reason why we're taking a fundamental refocus on business rates, fundamental reform there, because they are so outdated and actually they aren't helping our society when we see high streets completely abandoned. So there's Pride in Place funding now going out across the whole of the United Kingdom with targeted packages that communities get to choose how and where it's being spent, so that will directly impact small businesses.
The problem is that your Labour's position is always more government intervention. Give money. We get to tell them where to. We're going to give them money for this. We're going to give them money for that. Growth and prosperity doesn't come from government handouts. Right now, we have an economy that works for institutions. We have cheap foreign labour that have completely undercut wages and have basically filled all those low-skilled entry-level jobs, so the young people can't have jobs anymore. And there's so much bureaucracy that small businesses can't compete. It's not about government handouts. That's what Labour doesn't understand. It's about getting out the way, removing regulation, letting people keep more of their money, and giving people the opportunity to succeed, as opposed to just deciding the winners and losers through regulation.
Do you think your government actually understand business? Seeing as there are very few of them who've actually run a proper business.
There are very few that have run.
But do you think they understand business? For example, the business rates relief, removing that at a swipe and then changing the multiplier and then revaluing the businesses so that the rates would be high. It didn't make any sense. Do you think they understand the repercussions of their decisions? Because it doesn't seem like they do.
I think what has happened here is there's been a big picture view of economics and moving dials in order to try and move tax and spend and revenue streams to create better environments. But what hasn't been forecast, because perhaps people don't have the first-hand experience of it, is how that affects small businesses and business people every day. So you've seen things where there has been having to be emergency measures for certain sectors because it's just going to throw things completely in the works. And I think that's where the government needs to put a bit more focus, is to understand how this affects people every day.
But it's too late when the businesses have shut down. I mean, it's too late, isn't it? So it's all very well coming out with something, but then you've got multiple businesses closing. The business rates relief didn't just affect pubs, it affected pharmacies, it affected hair salons, and a whole host of businesses. And it's like they just don't understand. It is a mess.
I think where we are with this is that businesses now are so exposed because of the strain that they've been put in, low productivity, low access to capital, low growth, that when there is a small change in environmental circumstances, it has much bigger impact than it would have done 20 or 30 years ago.
Small change, some people would have been paying double.
The thing is, when you see an economy like that, where there is low growth, you say lack of access to capital, then a government should try and help not hinder. You know, when excessive regulation, excessive employment regulation is hindering that growth. It's hindering that productivity because businesses are not employing people. They don't want to invest. They don't want to grow and that's what you're seeing in the economy right now. And you're right. You know, AI is going to be a massive tool for productivity. And instead of running away from it, we should embrace it. But no economy that's excessively regulated is successful.
I don't think there's any argument here at the minute from this government to say we're going to regulate in order to get economic growth. The Chancellor's words were quite clearly, we cannot cut our way to growth. And clearly the growth agenda there is not going to be following those lines. So they'd be misrepresenting anything to say that there's going to be more regulation in order to induce growth. That's not happening.
Well, let's take construction, right? Planning's come to a halt because many Labour councils have put in excessive environmental regulation, height regulation, and what happens is
Labour councils are judged. No, sorry, I've been on planning committees. Labour councils are under the same planning criteria that they have to judge as any other council in the United Kingdom.
It's not true. I have sat on planning in Westminster where suddenly demolition is no longer environmental and you can't do it. And I've spoken to developers, I've spoken to home builders, the small ones, the ones who build the homes that people want, not the big ones that have a monopoly at the top because they can absorb all the regulation and dish out homes that people don't want. The small ones are just cut out of it. They can't afford it. And this is happening across all industries.
That's why they're bringing in planning reform.
Well, OK, we'll leave it there. But listen, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Alan says unemployment is at a 5-year high, but worse than that, available jobs now lower than people currently unemployed. Labour are falling. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not looking good, is it really? But listen, keep your thoughts coming. gbnews.com/your say. Coming up after the government's U-turn on cancelling local elections, questions are now mounting for local government Secretary Steve Reid. Is it time for him to go?
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello, if you're heading away for half term, it's a little bit drier across the Mediterranean than it has been lately. Further wet weather, though, affecting more northwestern areas of Europe. The Canary Islands seeing the best, the warmest and the driest weather across Europe. Some wet weather pushing into France and Spain. Drier than it has been across parts of Italy and Greece. And that theme does continue in towards the end of the week and into the weekend as well. But once again, Tenerife seeing highs of 24 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A mixed 24 hours ahead, cold and dry for many of us at first, but then an area of rain moves in, and as it bumps into the cold air, there will be snow for some, but it's going to be a messy mixture of rain, sleet and patchy snow for many parts of southern and central UK. Here's the front moving in, bumping into the cold air. It stays dry for Scotland, for many central and eastern parts of England overnight. Increasing cloud, but a frost in places nevertheless. So a chilly start to the day on Wednesday with temperatures below freezing in places. Meanwhile, we've got milder air returning to the west and southwest and these outbreaks of rain. A few flakes of snow over Dartmoor and Exmoor, but mostly this is rain affecting parts of Northern Ireland into the west and south of Wales, southwest England. Now, the rain eases off through the morning, so actually it turns drier for a time. A brisk southeasterly wind will make it feel cold, and we've got some snow falling over the higher parts of Northern Ireland, but rain at lower levels. Now for Scotland, plenty of breaks in the cloud, particularly towards the north, although some showers will affect parts of Shetland. And it's hazy sunshine, I think, for many parts of central and eastern England. Some cloud breaks coming along, a few glimmers of sunshine. The front in the south and west, though, is slow moving, so damp day to come for Northern Ireland, for much of Wales, the south and southwest. And then later in the day, the rain turns heavy across southern counties with the risk of localised flooding and issues on the roads. But we're beginning at this stage to see some snow over higher parts of Wales, and overnight into the start of Thursday could be some disruption due to snow across parts of Wales and the Midlands, mostly over hills, but some patchy snow at lower levels. However, on Thursday, all of that clears through. A brighter day follows eventually before more rain spills in from the northwest later. Then it turns much milder heading into the weekend, highs of 14 Celsius.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M77 southbound has a restricted off-slip at Junction 1 due to a broken down vehicle. On the M4 westbound, expect slow traffic from Junction 24 at Coldra to Junction 26 at Malpas. In Cheshire, the M56 eastbound is congested between the A494 near Chester and Junction 14, with around 40-minute delays. In Gloucestershire, the M5 northbound has lane closures between Junction 11 and Junction 9 for road management. And on the trains, cross-country and East Midlands Railway report disruption at Doncaster, plus delays from London St Pancras International to Luton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
I think it's been very civil this evening. 37 minutes after 6 o'clock. Welcome to Dewbs & Co. with me, Nana Acquia. Joining me until 7, my panel, Reform UK's London mayoral candidate Layla Cunningham and also Labour councillor Stuart Fawcett. Now, the local government secretary, that's Steve Reid, is facing mounting pressure to resign following the government's U-turns on postponing dozens of council elections scheduled for May. Steve Reid has repeatedly defended the move, despite critics arguing it amounted to an attack on democracy.
And it's not denying democracy. You know, I believe strongly.
That's what critics say. They say it is.
Of course they do, but they're wrong. They're wrong. It's speeding up elections to the new councils that will replace the councils that are being closed down. And I think that is sensible. We're looking at councils that will be there for the long term.
I can't take him seriously after that little scrap that he had with Camilla about how many homes that Labour had built. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has called on him to step down, and the Conservatives have also demanded that he resigns. Panel, should Steve go? Layla Cunningham.
Yeah, I think so, because, you know, they've pushed the limits of executive power, and I think the most dangerous idea in politics that I've heard is that the voters can be sidelined or can be ignored, or a casual kind of let's just ignore democracy and do it when it's convenient. Institutions and governments, I think Labour has a difficulty in understanding. They're tools of democracy. They're not the masters of it. And when they start ruling the people and saying, you know, elections aren't going to go ahead, we're going to curb your speech, whatever, freedom becomes conditional. And that's when people say absolutely not. And I think that's why reform exists, because I think institutions like Labour or government tend to govern looking down on people, when actually the ultimate boss are the voters, and it should always be the voters. And I don't think that's how Labour views the voters.
I would fundamentally disagree with that. Having knocked on many doors asking Labour households their opinions on what their issues are, and often when I knock on those doors, I'll say, "Hello, yeah, I'm here for the council election, as you know, I'm your councillor," and they'll say, "Great, yeah, okay. Well, the potholes outside, they need sorting." I say, "Oh, sorry, that's the other council." And that's why Labour said in their manifesto that they wanted a single tier of local government to make it more effective and efficient. So that is a huge change that we're trying to bring through in quite quick order. Don't forget that we've got a lot of demand at the minute to bring change into materiality very quickly.
Yeah, but not authoritarian change.
Well, hold on. But that has been given assent. It was in the manifesto and the King's Speech bringing local government reform.
It wasn't in the manifesto to council elections. That was not in the manifesto
ever. In order to do that, there's been a huge onus on councils like mine who have had to do a lot of work alongside all their other services to actually deliver LGR and how this is going to happen. Part of that is going to be current councils to run elections for the new local government, however they may be, the new councils. So the choice was the MHCLG made the decision to consult with councils and say, do you have the capacity to run an election for your council that's going to be defunct in a year or two, as well as run an election for the new council and do all the work that's going to transfer all your responsibilities across? Do you have that? And they said, no.
The problem is that elections aren't optional if you have the capacity or not. It's not. By the way, you know, we're thinking of doing elections next year. Do you think you can do it or not? And it's a belief that democracy can be paused, or, you know, can be not happen if it's not convenient. And this fundamentally is about who has power. Right, and Labour believe that they have power.
But no one's going to have any power. Those people aren't going to have power because their whole council is going to be dissolved.
This is about who has power, right? Is it the ministers or the people? And what we're seeing with Labour is that ministers seem to think that they have the power and not people. Power should flow from the people up. And right now what Labour's doing is it's flowing power from the government down to institutions. You do not, never, ever, in a democracy, do you get to extend your term. It's only voters who have that right, and it should only be extended in an election. And you tried to overrule that fundamental principle of democracy, and I'm afraid to say Reform is the only one that are true believers in democracy, because, I'll give it to you, Conservatives also wanted to cancel elections in some parts of the country. So both of you, both parties, are guilty.
Well, I'd say that democracy always starts within a party, and I'd be interested to know how Reform elects all of its candidates for its election.
People are worried about national democracy.
You've asked about democracy.
Don't try.
Well,
we're
no,
talking
I think
about.
parties
Don't
do
try
have
and deflect, because that's all Labour does is deflect.
Parties do have to set an example
that is
on the
internal.
type of democracy that they're going to enact in Parliament,
so if
and that is a legitimate question.
If parties have to set an example, then how come all your ministers are mired in scandal? What kind of example are you setting to the public when you appointed? Well, hang on. Angela Rayner, who's about
but not all of them.
Angela Rayner, who's being mooted for leader, resigned for a scandal. Starmer might resign for a scandal. I mean, your housing minister, your corruption minister. I mean, you name it. Your ambassador was best friends with the most prolific paedophile. What kind of example is the Labour Party setting for the country there?
So I can't speak for all those people who have done wrong and resigned. But what I can speak to give some clarity here is, if the government had approached, if my council was due to elect this year, it's not. It's due to elect next year. But with all the work we've just done, and officers that have said to us, we don't have the resources to run an election as well as doing all this other work, we would have consulted.
Then you don't do the work and you do the election.
What I'm saying. We would have said, well, the work has already been mandated. That's part of the King's speech. It was part of the
manifesto
commitment.
Loads of things have been mandated and you haven't put through.
Look, it's totally fine. We're going through a change curve at the minute, and I'm sure if Reform gets into government, you're going to experience all of these things when you want to bring changes in. But we're trying to bring this new layer of local government in, which is pretty much unprecedented. So the decision was to consult with councils and say, can you do it? The answer from many councils, not all different political persuasions.
You basically ask people if they can extend their
But
job.
your argument here is that we're denying democracy to people. Far from it. We're adding a new layer of democracy, which was going to elect earlier. So we weren't denying them democracy at all, because
then why did you
let's hear the
because
reason,
those particular institutions that were about to go to election will soon be defunct. So the priority was going to be that the new layer of democracy would elect first.
So why did you U-turn? If it's so reasonable, in your opinion, to cancel an election, why did the Labour government only when it was forced to, because it realised that it was actually illegal what it was doing?
Because
why did the government
is
U-turn?
now using lawfare to take
over. Hold on.
You had no statutory right to cancel elections.
No, you've been proven to be. That's been proven to be illegal. You're not allowed to cancel elections in that way. The bar wasn't high enough, and we all know that. Bob says, resign Reid immediately. Dennis says, why just Steve Reid? They're all complicit in this disaster. Robert says, Steve Reid does not have enough political clout to have made the cancellation of elections on his own. Thus, this was a Starmer decision. Once again, he's hiding behind someone else. Okay, and finally, Malcolm says, closing down our council, were we asked if we wanted that? Will our council tax increase or decrease? Yes, good question. Well, I don't believe you were asked, sadly, but they thought that they'd do something. It wasn't going to fit the time, so they'd extend the time. Well, listen, coming up, a mother from Gaza has successfully used ECHR, to win the right to move to Britain. Could this ruling now open the floodgates for more Palestinian refugees to follow?
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you.
Hello, everyone. Patrick Christie is here. GBNews,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GBNews family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome to Dewbs & Co with me, Nana Akweer. Joining me until 7, my panel, Layla Cunningham and Stuart Fawcett. Now, let's get stuck into this next story that actually kind of winds me up, but then when you hear the full context of the story, see which way you're going to go. OK, so a mother from Gaza has won the right to move to Britain in an immigration ruling that could open the door for more Palestinian refugees to follow. Now, the unnamed woman successfully argued that preventing her from joining her children in the UK would breach her right to family life under Article 8 of the ECHR. Now, the decision follows a lengthy legal battle in which the government sought to prevent a wider exodus of refugees from Gaza seeking to reunite with family members in Britain. Well, let's go to my panel and find out what they think on that. Stuart Fawcett.
Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, has been very clear that we just can't keep sponsoring the parents of people in this country to come here and join them under Article 8. It's just not feasible in terms of numbers. Now, if you look at this particular situation with this lady who's actually been living in Egypt, which I understand is quite a safe country, there's no war there. So it's sort of a serious failing, really, in the interpretation, which is why the government is trying to take it to court in order to make the reinterpretation much different of Articles both 3 and 8 in these cases. So, but when you look at this, if this isn't someone coming directly out of Gaza to escape a war, they're already in a safe place, and it outlines how critical it is to make sure that that renegotiation takes place in order that our immigration system has more confidence in it because it has more integrity.
The problem is that people, Labour know. You accept that the ECHR is blocking deportations. We see it, right? And, you know, the problem with the ECHR is it's very broadly written, so it's open to interpretation. I mean, Article 8, for instance, was just meant to prevent settled families from not being separated. It was never an automatic right to move to Britain. But you see that it's blocking deportations, it's undermining border control, yet you refuse to remove it. And at the end of the day, we talk about democracy, but democracy is about Parliament retaining control of the outcomes. And due to the ECHR, people don't feel protected with the ECHR. In fact, I think the British public feel that they're being overruled with it. And that feeling of being overruled by courts or a partnership like the ECHR or whatever you call it, an instrument, really has eroded trust that the government's going to do anything. And you have the power as a Labour Party, as the government, to restore trust by showing that you value more the outcomes than you do value these global partnerships.
Well, I mean, didn't Shabana Mahmood win a victory on the Court of Appeal in November that restricted Palestinians fleeing Gaza to use Article 8? Now, she won that victory, but yet somehow she was unable to beat an immigration tribunal. And that's... Yeah,
but that's when you have right now we have Parliament's not creating law anymore. It's courts, and you know, right now the ECHR has been interpreted in such a wide manner that it is no longer fit for purpose.
But it's a very old piece of... It's an international treaty. You referred to it earlier.
Well, that's
the
what
ECHR is an international... And people don't vote for international treaties.
No,
they vote for parties who will put their best interests first. When the ECHR came into being, it was at post-war 1950s that it came in. The world has changed a lot since then. We've got a lot more displaced people. But it's clearly being used for purposes that it was not invented for, essentially. And I think this case is another example of that in particular. Now,
it's actually being used to manufacture some imaginary right to enter Britain. And, you know, it's basically... you know what it is? It's controlling our immigration policy. Immigration policy is almost no longer controlled by Parliament. It's no longer controlled by our elected MPs. We are being controlled by an international treaty and the wide interpretation that happens in courts. And the only way to stop that is to remove us from the ECHR, but somehow your government, your leader, values global partnerships with the EU more than he values doing what's right for the country.
So I think there's some fundamental choices facing now for the Labour Party. Human Rights Act is enshrined in law. It believes in things of people's rights. But there's a fundamental choice now facing the Labour Party, which is go down the long route of renegotiating, disregard any cases that are brought through the ECHR and do the removals, or indeed leave. But I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
All right, well, a lot of people. Raymond says, pull out of the ECHR. Sarah says, always less services and accountability for more taxes from where I'm standing. This is on all the other subjects we've been talking about. Elizabeth says, it was illegal to say Steve Reid should go. You would have thought that one person in the Labour Party would have known that. Probably they should know that ahead of that. And that is, of course, Sir Keir Starmer. And Malcolm says, closing down our council were we asked. I've said that one, haven't I? And Robert says, Steve Reid does not have enough political clout to have made the cancellation of elections on his own. Well, listen, I've got to say a huge thank you to my brilliant panel. Layla Cunningham, thank you very much, and also Stuart Fawcett, and also thank you to you at home for watching and listening. Remember, I'm back tomorrow at midday with Good Afternoon Britain, and I'll be covering for Michelle Dewberry tomorrow as well. So I shall see you tomorrow. Have a good evening. And up next, it is Farage.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A mixed 24 hours ahead, cold and dry for many of us at first, but then an area of rain moves in, and as it bumps into the cold air, there will be snow for some, but it's going to be a messy mixture of rain, sleet and patchy snow for many parts of southern and central UK. Here's the front moving in, bumping into the cold air. It stays dry for Scotland, for many central and eastern parts of England overnight. Increasing cloud, but a frost in places nevertheless, so a chilly start.